Every year, Muslims around the world enter a month that feels quieter, heavier, and deeply meaningful. That month is Muharram. It is the first month of the Islamic calendar. But unlike January, there are no fireworks, party hats, or people pretending they'll go to the gym every day. For many Muslims, Muharram is a month of reflection. For Shia Muslims especially, it is a time of mourning and remembrance, because Muharram carries the memory of one of the most painful events in Islamic history, the tragedy of Karbala. A story of faith, power, resistance, sacrifice, and a divide within the Muslim world that had already begun before Karbala, but became much deeper after it. Muharram is one of the 4 sacred months in Islam. The word itself is linked to the idea of something being sacred or forbidden, a time when fighting was traditionally prohibited. So from the very beginning, Muharram was not just another month. It was meant to be a time of restraint, a time to pause, a time to think before humans did what humans do best, make things complicated. For Muslims, Muharram also includes the day of Ashura, the 10th day of the month. Ashura holds different layers of meaning. Many Sunni Muslims remember it as a day connected to fasting, reflection, and prophetic history. Many Shia Muslims mark it as the day Imam Hussain ibn Ali was martyred at Karbala. Different practices, different emotional focus, but one shared reality: Muharram matters deeply. To understand Karbala, we have to go back. After the passing of Prophet Muhammad, Muslims faced a major question: who should lead the Muslim community? This was not a small administrative issue. This was not like deciding who manages the group project. This was about the future of a rapidly growing religious and political community. Some Muslims believed leadership should be decided through consultation among the community's senior companions. Others believed leadership belonged to the Prophet's family, especially Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law. This disagreement became the early foundation of what would later be known as the Sunni and Shia divide. At the time, it was not as neatly labeled as it is today. History rarely arrives with headings, bullet points, and a helpful PowerPoint. But the question was there: should leadership come through community consensus or through the family of the Prophet? Ali ibn Abi Talib eventually became the 4th caliph. He is deeply respected by both Sunni and Shia Muslims. For Sunnis, he is one of the rightly guided caliphs. For Shia Muslims, he is the first imam and the rightful spiritual leader after the Prophet. But Ali's time as caliph was marked by conflict, political unrest, and civil war. After Ali was assassinated, his son Hassan briefly held leadership. But Hassan later made a peace agreement with Muawiyah, who became the ruler of the Muslim Empire. This agreement was meant to prevent more bloodshed, because by this point, the Muslim community had already seen too much internal conflict. But peace agreements are sometimes like putting tape on a cracked wall. It may hold for a while, but the crack is still there. After Muawiyah, leadership passed to his son Yazid. This was a major turning point. Many people saw this as the rise of hereditary rule, leadership passing from father to son. For some, this was political stability. For others, it was a dangerous shift away from the values of justice, consultation, and moral leadership. Imam Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad, refused to give allegiance to Yazid. For Hussein, this was not just politics. It was a matter of principle, a matter of conscience, a question of whether power could demand loyalty without justice. And this is where the road to Karbala begins. In Iraq, people from the city of Kufa sent letters to Imam Hussein. They invited him to come and lead them. They said they opposed Yazid's rule. So Hussein began his journey with his family and companions. But politics, fear, and pressure moved faster than the caravan. By the time Hussein was on his way, the situation in Kufa had changed. Supporters were threatened. Leaders were pressured. People became afraid, and the invitation that once looked like a door opening started to look like a trap closing. In the year 680 say, Imam Hussein and his small group were stopped at a place called Karbala. They were surrounded by forces loyal to Yazid. The group included Hussein's family members, companions, and children. They were cut off from water. The Euphrates River was nearby. But access to it was blocked. And that is one of the most painful parts of the memory of Karbala. The tragedy was not only that Hussein was killed, it was that he and his family faced thirst, isolation, and overwhelming force. A small group standing before an empire, not because they had a massive army, but because they refused to surrender their principles. On the 10th of Muharram, the day of Ashura, the confrontation reached its tragic end. Imam Hussein and his companions were killed. For Shia Muslims, Ashura is the heart of Muharram. It is remembered through mourning gatherings, majalis, processions, poetry, elegies, and acts of devotion. The grief is not only historical, it is spiritual. It is emotional. It is a way of saying, we remember. We stand with justice. We do not forget those who suffered. For Sunni Muslims, Imam Hussein is also respected as the beloved grandson of the Prophet. Many Sunnis see Karbala as a tragic and unjust event in Islamic history. The difference is often in how the event is remembered, ritualized, and understood religiously. But across the Muslim world, Hussein's courage is widely honored. Muharram is the first month of the Islamic calendar. But for many Muslims, it begins not with celebration, but with remembrance. The story of Karbala is painful. It is also powerful. It reminds Muslims of a moment when a small group stood against overwhelming power. It reminds Shia Muslims especially of grief, loyalty, and resistance. It reminds many Sunni Muslims of a tragic injustice and the honored place of the Prophet's family. And it reminds anyone studying history that the past is never just the past. Sometimes, history becomes memory. Memory becomes identity. And identity becomes a question every generation must answer. When the easier path is silence, what does it mean to stand for what is right? This was Muharram, Karbala, and the story of a divide that still echoes. And as always, Passport Studios is here to make history simpler, without making it smaller. If this helped make a complicated chapter of history easier to understand, like, share, and subscribe to Passport Studios.